Hello everyone, Joey here, and today we're going to talk about a bit of a sensitive topic. This isn't something I normally talk about or do. I will be honest, normally when I make videos, I kind of build up a little script and really iron out my thoughts. But I know what I want to talk about today, and I'm just going to go for it. There's no script. This is just all me right now. Death can be a pretty touchy subject for most. Some people have a very difficult time talking about death. Some people are more open with it. I think it's very valuable and important to talk about it. It's not an easy conversation by any means, but it's very important to know what somebody's dying wishes may be, or their final thoughts, all overall spending final moments together as well. These are all very valuable components to death, although it's not easy. I want to share a little bit of my experience, how it's really impacted me over this last year. When I was younger, I experienced my first death when I was about 5. It was an older individual who lived with my family at the time. He was 18 years old. I remember my parents telling me that he got into a car crash and he was gone. He didn't wear his seatbelt, so please wear your seatbelt if you don't. And I remember crying. I remember feeling really bummed out about it. But I was young, but I understood what happened. I didn't experience another death from someone that was close to me until a little bit later. I was in 3rd grade, but I got bumped up to 4th grade. So 4th grade, we'll say. But I was in 3rd grade when it happened. And it was my grandma on my father's side. And at this point, I was living in Wisconsin and she was living in California. So we didn't get to see each other too frequently, but we did get to meet, and we did have some phone calls here and there. So when she passed away, we went to California, and I remember, it was a rough time. I definitely cried during that time as well. But I was still very young, understood that she was no longer with us. Fast forward, and I didn't experience any death. Really, the next closer person that passed away was my step grandpa, so the person that my dad's mom was married to. But I was not that close with him. We did go out to his funeral. I did carry his casket. I don't recall crying. I do, of course, remember feeling melancholy being at a funeral. More recently, a lot of that has changed. Pretty much, I would say, from about 3rd, 4th grade up to this last 2 years, I didn't really experience much death. And the first close death that I felt was about 4 years ago. It was my grandpa on my mom's side. He was having a very, very difficult time with his health. He was in and out of the hospital a lot. So it was evident, that he wasn't going to be with us forever. He was definitely on his final moments. When he passed away, at this point, I was living in California and he was in Wisconsin. So a little bit of a roles reversed, but I didn't have the finances to go out to his funeral. But I was very, very sad, very sad knowing that he wasn't with us anymore. We did have a lot of great moments. We watched a lot of movies and shows together. We watched the original Planet of the Apes series and then some of the newer ones. A lot of Star Trek and Wheel of Fortune. So although we didn't physically do too many things together, we definitely had a lot of time sitting together, talking, and watching shows together. It was definitely a sad moment when he passed away. About a year after that, my uncle, who was very much struggling with depression all his life, and it was very evident, took his own life. Although I knew he was struggling, and everyone knew he was struggling with depression on and off throughout his life, you never know when or if someone is actually going to take their life. And I was very close with my uncle. Yeah, we spent a lot of time together growing up. He would take me ice fishing. We'd go for walks together. He was always definitely somebody that you could lean on and rely on. I need a ride somewhere. Hey, uncle, I need some help. He was a very great man. It was my first suicide that I experienced, again, another close death. Some time passed, and it was coming up almost to a year, but not quite yet. And an old college friend of mine, who we didn't talk all the time anymore, I would consider him a very good old friend of mine. He also struggled with a lot of depression, his own mental struggles. And I remember getting the call from one of my other friends letting me know that he also had just taken his life. It really started to shake up my world a little bit, because I hadn't experienced too much death, and now I've experienced 3 in closer succession, and now 2 of them are suicides. One of them being my uncle, who I was very close to, and the other one being a good old friend. At this point, I ended up moving back to Wisconsin. There was a good buddy of ours who was in the friend group who I wasn't as familiar with, but once I moved back to Wisconsin, him and I started to become friends. I was very fortunate to meet him in person, and we would be talking and hanging out on TeamSpeak. That's where we would all hang out. I remember some of our friends in the friend group telling me that he had taken his life. And, then really started shaking everything's up even more, because my uncle, an old friend, and a new friend, within the year, they're all gone. Just a couple weeks after my father took his life, and my father and I were very close. We were good friends more than we were father and son. And that really rocked my world, because not only was I experiencing death in pretty quick succession, but now I've just experienced 4 suicides back to back. It's been a little over a year since my dad has passed, and I've really had this year of working through it. It's been a process, I'll tell you that. And right now, my grandma on my mom's side just got put in hospice. There's always potential of getting better, but as most people know, hospice is definitely one of the last steps towards death. I wanted to share all of these experiences to A, talk about it, get it off my chest. So thank you for listening. And B, share some of my final thoughts on death. My dad always used to say, none of us make it out alive. And that couldn't be more true. Throughout time, many people have tried to stay alive as long as possible, doing even crazy witchcraft in the olden days. But none of them are here to talk about it, because no one truly does make it out alive. But my grandpa always says, we're here for a good time, not a long time. And I like to add to that and say, a good time helps make a long time. You never really know what someone is going through, and you never truly know what the breaking point of that person is. Of course, I have every part of me that wishes and believes that I could have reached out more, I could have said more, I could have done something. That's also their path that they've chosen. And as you live in your path, and if you're going through struggles, know that people love you. People care for you. And if you do leave, it's going to rock some people's world. And I know things are tough. This has been one of the toughest experiences I have ever gone through. But at the end of it, we're going to work through it. You can work through it. So your goal in life is to enjoy it as much as you possibly can. There's always going to be hurdles. There's always going to be complicated moments. And there's always going to be devastating moments. But just how I'm making it through all of these moments, and I've made it through some other devastating moments, you can also make it through those moments. So remember, none of us make it out alive. But we're here for a good time, not a long time. But having a good time helps create a long time. Thank you guys for listening. I really appreciate it. Thanks for letting me get all this off my chest. I hope this reaches out to somebody and helps them who is maybe grieving through death or having their own complications in life. We're all here to help one another out, even if it doesn't feel like it sometimes. So remember, it can get better. Thank you. If you or someone you know is contemplating suicide, please reach out to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline.